Just stand back by the flag so the camera can't see you, and then you'll come in.
Okay.
All right.
Oh, about the flag.
Yeah.
I'll get there.
You've been a movie producer. Ready? You want me to say 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 like they do with town hall? There we go.
Okay, now we come to the last part of our debate and discussion tonight, and that is for the race of supervisor. Something I participated in 25 years ago, and I went to every debate that I could. And again, I'm disappointed that the full slate of candidates did not choose to participate tonight. But we have with us Matt Slater, who is running for supervisor. I'd like you to come on out and give us an statement.
Thank you everyone for coming tonight. Rosemary, Aaron, thank you so much for moderating this really important event. I want to also thank Sergio Esposito, President of the Yorktown Chamber, and the entire Chamber organization for recognizing the importance of a night like tonight. You know, it is a debate, but it's also a conversation. And if you want to have a dialogue about the future of our town and the issues facing our town, you have to be willing to participate in that dialogue. You know, Woody Allen said 80% of success is just showing up. And I've been looking forward to this for a long time, and I'm proud to be here. A little bit about me. I was raised here in Yorktown. My mom and my grandmother still live in the house that they raised me in. I'm a proud product of a number of fantastic community organizations we have here. The Yorktown Athletic Club, the YYSC, and I pulled in and they were still playing out on Veterans Field where I grew up playing. I'm a product of our school district. Graduated in 2004. Went on to get my bachelor's from a place called St. Anselm College up in New Hampshire, and then a master's in public administration from Marist College. For those who know me, know my focus is my family. And I'm so happy to have my wife Kelly here tonight with both our kids. My little guy Charlie. Charlie just turned 4 last week. It's a little past his bedtime, but we're giving him a break. And we have the newest addition, of course, baby Elizabeth, of the ripe old age of 8 weeks with us today. So I couldn't be more invested, absolutely, I couldn't be more invested in the future of our town. And I'm proud to represent so many families like ours who are equally as invested in the future direction of our community. I believe in public service. I value public service. That's something my mom instilled in me growing up here in town. And I've already served this community in a number of different facets, some of which that Sergio pointed on earlier tonight. I've already served on the Energy Advisory Committee from the town. I've served as Chief of Staff in both houses of our state legislature. I served as Chief of Staff to Assemblyman Steve Katz, and then for the last 4 years, it was an absolute honor to serve as Chief of Staff to State Senator Terrence Murphy. Ironically, both Assemblyman Katz and Senator Murphy are also Yorktown residents, so we had a lot of work to do. You know, I get a lot of the questions about Chief of Staff. What is a Chief of Staff? And really, it's where your legislative and your executive responsibilities meet. Because you have to understand the process of how to write laws, but you also have to understand how to implement them when the rubber meets the road. And that's really the importance of local government. When I was working with Senator Murphy, we did a lot for this community. We took great pride in our roots here in Yorktown. And there's 3 things that I want to touch on that we did a lot with. The first is the environment, taking care of a local environment here. You know, we secured state funds of $80,000 for the town to purchase a weed harvester to combat the harmful algal blooms in places like Lake Mohegan and Osceola Lake and Sparkle Lake. We also expanded the state's inland waterway list, and we included places, again, like Lake Mohegan, Osceola. And I'm proud to say that Senator Harcum and my good friend who's here, State Assemblyman Kevin Byrne, continued our work on that, and this year added Sparkle Lake to that list as well. We also invested in infrastructure. We brought in a record $1.9 million for our local roads. And on top of that, we also secured $250,000 to repave Quinlan Street, which was just completed this summer. And I want to also thank Highway Superintendent Dave Paganelli and his fine department for the great job they did on that project. And lastly, we really spent a lot of time focused on our community, investing in our community, and the quality of life issues that all of our families are facing. You know, we helped expand the K-9 program, or the K-9 unit, for the Yorktown Police Department. We helped work with both fire departments to give them state-of-the-art technology and equipment. We will partner with community organizations like Drug Crisis in Our Backyard, Alliance for Safe Kids, and others that I just completely blanked on. But but we did a lot for our community, and I'm very proud of all of that. My campaign has been focused on the future and giving Yorktown a real fresh start moving forward. There's three things that we've already laid out a plan for. One, and I think it's the most important issue facing our community, and that's the affordability issue. You know, the Chamber of Commerce came out with a study in 2010 that showed that 76.85% of our taxes are paid for by homeowners. In 2017, that number grew. That number grew to over 77%, and we only have a 10.49% commercial tax base. That's a major problem facing our community. Another thing we focused on is the environment. You know, we added Lake Mohegan and Lake Osceola, and thanks to Senator Byrne and Senator Harcum, Sparkle Lake to the state's inland waterway list. It's time we do something with that, and that's called the Local Waterfront Revitalization Plan, and that's something that I have all intentions of following through on. In addition, for our environment, we also need to make Yorktown Westchester's 4th certified climate smart community, and I'm proud to have the support and endorsement of the New York League of Conservation Voters to make that a reality. And finally, the other aspect that we focus heavily on is improving the management of our town. And that starts with modernizing how our town government operates. This is happening across the country. It's happening in towns right next door to us. You should be able to get your poll casts online. Simple things like that just make our lives as residents so much more convenient and maximizing the services we get out of our town government. I think the bottom line is I know how much work it's going to take to get our town to where it needs to be. But I know for a fact that I've got the experience, I've got the energy, and I've got the passion to get it done. And I just want to thank everyone again for coming. I want to thank the Chamber for hosting this great event tonight. And I'm looking forward to a great dialogue, a great conversation, and some fantastic questions from the audience. So again, thank you all very much for coming. Really do appreciate it.
Once again, how do you plan to maintain services while minimizing the tax impact on our residents?
I think that goes right directly to the affordability issue facing our town. We need to grow a thriving business climate in Yorktown. We need to grow a thriving business community. I just read you the statistics. 77% of our taxes are paid for by homeowners. That is actually we actually have the lowest commercial tax base in the entire county. So I think if we're going to look to expand our services or maintain our level of services, we have to look at the tax structure of our town. And we can do that by partnering with our business community, partnering with organizations like the Chamber of Commerce, looking at new age technology and new age businesses to attract here. We export people every single day. We export people to New York City, White Plains, Tarrytown, Connecticut. It's time we actually invest in bringing employers to Yorktown. If we do that, we will shift the tax structure, we will maintain and grow our services, and we'll actually be able to shift that burden off our homeowners.
Senior citizens and young people find it increasingly difficult to afford to live in Yorktown. These groups are very important for a healthy community. First part, how would you address the housing needs of senior citizens?
Sure. So this is something that was discussed earlier tonight with Councilman Ackerman and Councilman Diana. You know, I've knocked on thousands of doors in this town. I got to tell you, it's absolutely heartbreaking. I knock on doors, and you have folks who should be on the verge of retirement. They should see the light at the end of the tunnel, and instead, you have the husband or the wife or both. They're working 2 jobs just to keep a roof over their heads. It's unacceptable. We really need to, and that goes back to, again, the affordability issues facing the town of Yorktown and our residents. In regards to senior housing, we need to be creative. We need to look at different options that are going to come before the town, but we also, I think, need to update our comprehensive plan. It was something that was discussed in the last round of questions. Our comprehensive plan, in my mind, is obsolete. It's supposed to be a 20-year document. We're 10 years in. It hasn't been updated, and our society's changed. Our society continues to change, and if it's going to be a living, breathing document, it needs to reflect the needs of the society that we live in. So those are some of the issues that I think we need to address, especially for our seniors.
How would you address the housing needs for young people who would like to start out here on their own?
Sure. I can't tell you how many of my friends actually are starting to come back to Yorktown, which is fantastic. I ran into someone just yesterday, and I graduated with his daughter, and he was so excited because she just moved into Curry Street with her 2 kids. And that's an exciting thing. It all goes back to the same thing, it's the affordability issue. The biggest problem that we have in Yorktown, though, is the fact that we don't have mass transportation options for millennials to commute to New York City or to where there are actual employers. If you look at it, I have a cousin who just moved to the region. He's working down in Tarrytown. He actually moved to Tarrytown because that's their mindset. And so it's either one of two things: either we're going to be able to put some mass transportation options here in Yorktown, which I really don't think is possible, or we're going to need to attract employers. To attract employers, you're going to be able to provide good-paying jobs for the millennials or young families, just like mine, to be able to stay here in town, to be able to live here in town, and grow their families in town.
Thank you. I have a question. How do you view your relationship, or what do you anticipate your relationship being with the Chamber of Commerce and other business groups in town going forward?
I hope a good one. Again, it comes down to being able to bring people to the table and building partnerships. And whether it's the Chamber of Commerce or any business organization in town, we need to have a common goal of supporting our local businesses, a common goal of attracting new businesses, a common goal of attracting new employers. And so, to me, it doesn't matter if you're a Republican or Democrat, I don't care. It's just a matter of doing the right thing for our community. And so, in regards to the Chamber, I am very much looking forward to a prosperous relationship with all of you, with Sergio, and the entire board.
I got a follow-up on that. What's your position on the revitalization of downtown?
Are you speaking specifically about the previous project or the need for it? My views.
Your views.
Sure. I think again it was touched on earlier. I think there's an abundant there's a ton of potential for Yorktown Heights, and I've spoken with so many people across town. I've spoken with contractors, developers, people who are interested in Yorktown Heights, and you know what it comes down to for them? Confidence. Just confidence. Confidence that they're going to be able to walk into town hall with their project and go from A to Z without getting absolutely hammered. You look at things like the Lowe's project that took 10 years. You look at the Jefferson Valley Mall. For the Jefferson Valley Mall, I sat in the negotiating table with DOT, Jefferson Valley Mall, and the town, and we were able to put some innovative ideas together that was going to allow the Jefferson Valley Mall to thrive, to grow. And this town supervisor and his administration, they halted that entire project. That's a fact. That's an absolute fact. That sends a ripple effect throughout the entire business community. And so when people, and I'm knocking on doors, when people tell me, yeah, Yorktown's great, but there's 3 places you don't do business if you're in business. It's Yonkers, it's Portchester, and it's Yorktown. I want to be in the top 3 of a lot of things. That's not one of the things that I want my Yorktown to be in the top 3 of.
One thing, perhaps the first thing you wish to accomplish as town supervisor?
I want to get a Veterans Council started. I have the utmost and deep respect for the veterans of Yorktown, and I think that we can do a better job streamlining our communication and improving services to them. We call this Operation Thank You. And we actually had our first planning meeting this past Thursday over at the VFW, because that's how excited people are to see this get done. And so we already put things into place for us to look at. I think it's a combination of things. You're going to improve communication for our veterans. You're going to streamline services, because the fact of the matter is a lot of our veterans don't even realize that they qualify for property tax exemptions. And so if you have a body for our veterans to go to with these questions, it's going to improve. There's other things that we can do with our Veterans Council that were highlighted as well, from studying different opt-in programs that are offered in other municipalities and states. We talked about a jobs program. We talked about, when I was in Albany, we supported helmets to hard hats. was a fantastic program. Rolling that out into Yorktown. You know, those are things that we can actually expand on with a Veterans Council leading the way. The last thing that we talked about, which I thought was fantastic, is engaging our school districts. Engaging our school districts with a living history program. We have so many heroes in our community, and as unfortunately, as Councilman Lachterman pointed out, one of our World War II heroes just passed recently, just this week. We are losing those heroes. We're losing the ability to capture their primary accounts about the incredible things they have seen serving our country, protecting our freedom. And so that's the very first thing I'm going to do is stand up for our veterans.
Something that Aaron and I have been discussing for quite a while, and I would like to pose the question to you. Do you think the term of supervisor should be a 4-year term? The reason I ask that is 2 years goes by very quickly. You may have a wonderful plan, but given all of the roadblocks that are around, it just seems that it takes forever for anything to get done. And right in the middle of that 2 years, you have to start running for re-election. So how do you feel about that?
So in both the State Assembly and the State Senate, where I served and held the position of Chief of Staff, we have 2-year terms. So I'm well aware of the timeline that you're up against. You have an 18-month window. You have to hit the ground running. There is no room for a learning curve. That's the first thing. The second thing, if you want to talk about expanding the length of office, you have to do it with term limits. There's no question in my mind that we absolutely need term limits for our local government. It's time to step up and lead by example. And I would have absolutely no problem putting a referendum to the residents of Yorktown to either A, pass term limits, and or B, increase the length of term for the supervisor. But they have to be paired together. You cannot have one without the other.
Okay. You've been talking about policies and your role, I suppose, as a board member in making policies, but your role as supervisor also includes a hefty administrative responsibility. And I would like to hear your thoughts on whether you would do things differently, what might you want to see changed, how would you handle the administrative side, and in running the town with its many departments and employees.
So again, one of the first things people have asked me this, one of the first things you're going to do? It's a staff meeting. It's a staff meeting. We have phenomenal workers, we have phenomenal employees. I don't pretend to know everything. I want to make sure that I'm empowering our employees to do their jobs. My job as supervisor, and you've sat in that role, you know what I'm talking about. It's blocking tackling. It's figuring out where the obstacles are and how do I remove them. And you only do that with proper communication and with a culture in town hall of getting things done. And I can tell you that when I worked in the Senate, that's exactly what I did as Chief of Staff. It was a very similar role, working with our municipalities, whether it was regards to implementing some of our grants that we were able to secure, local legislation. That's exactly what we were able to do. But we did it actually on a much larger level. Here in Yorktown, I am just so excited to work with some of the best municipal workers you can find in Westchester County. And I just hope that I get the chance to show them what we can do. I firmly believe that the best days of Yorktown are ahead of us. I firmly believe that. And with the right mindset and the right attitude and the right communication, we're going to be able to prove it.
So is that a yes on the 4-year term?
With term limits.
Okay.
Some of this has been covered before, but I'd like to hear your thoughts on the comprehensive plan and where you might want to go with it. You talked a little bit about it, but be more specific. And also consider the Hill property and some of the other developments that are out there.
No problem. So let's start with the comprehensive plan. Like I said earlier, comprehensive plan is supposed to be a living document with a shelf life of 20 years. It's already obsolete. That's just the reality. You need to update the comprehensive plan. I would actually like to see a commission in place that continues to update the comprehensive plan, and so we're not playing catch-up every 10 years. It should be updated more than 10 years, if not quarterly, if you're a 20-year lifespan. That's the first thing. The second thing you asked about was the Hill Street property. I've stated, and I'm not afraid to shy away from the fact that I think that changes the character and integrity of Jefferson Valley. I have a very significant problem. We've talked about conservation. We've talked about progress of preservation. We've talked about the need for housing. But if you're going to change the integrity and character of a community, that you can't have it both ways. You just can't. And so I think that the Hill Street property poses a number of issues. Again, there was a presentation of the town board by some concerned residents that showed the Cortland property, again on Route 6 in Mohegan Lake with 52 units. This is going to be triple that size. Triple that size. And, I can tell you that I've heard from people not just in Jefferson Village, absolutely not just in Jefferson Village. I've heard from people in Shrub Oak. I've heard from people in Mohegan Lake. There is a lot of opposition to this project because of the fact that they want to protect what they love about our community. And I think that's a great thing.
Given the fact that our young people, especially our very young people, shop differently than certainly I did or do now, how will you take this into consideration when you are trying to redevelop or repurpose properties that we already have in town? I give the example of my 12-year-old grandson. I don't think he's ever bought anything in a store.
Yeah.
So I wonder how that's going to go, and how we're going to continue to keep our commercial base viable as we go towards the future.
I think the answer is you can't start the conversation with retail any longer. You have to be realistic. The days of your traditional retail, like you said, listen, I love Toys R Us. My wife is the most upset person in the town when Toys R Us closed. But the fact of the matter is people aren't shopping in stores anymore. They're shopping online. You can get your groceries online and delivered to your house. That's just the way the world is working now. I think if you start the conversation with employment, start the conversation with high-tech, biotech jobs, start the conversation with new age industry, you need the critical mass to support a vibrant commercial development and business community. You need that critical mass. When I go to small businesses in town, I visited a cafe recently, phenomenal cafe, right in the downtown Heights. Can't through Friday, they are hanging on by a thread because there's no one here to frequent those shops. And so you can't start the conversation anymore with retail. You have to end the conversation with retail. And if we're gonna support our business community and support our small businesses, we have to figure out a way to build that critical base and stop exporting people every single day. And that includes our seniors, because as we've learned, our seniors are now being exported to Putnam County for their daycare service that they offer in Mayapack. So not only are we exporting millennials, not only are we exporting middle-aged families, but we're also exporting our seniors. It's got to stop. And so I think if we develop strong employment opportunities that supports the cost of living here in Yorktown, we're going to be able to shift that tax structure again away from the homeowners. That 77% number has to be reduced, and we can do all of that with the right attitude, with putting confidence back in the business community, that we're going to be able to be a partner with them and not an obstacle.
Okay, thanks. You talked before about the Parks Department and the Park and Recreation Commission. I'd like to know how you would address some of the issues that are raised in connection with administration as a supervisor versus that independent board.
Well, I'm the one who's making a lot of noise in the parks. I found that, let's start with the commission. I think that commission needs to be really looked at hard. If you want me to tell you that I think that they should be reduced to an advisory board, I think they should be reduced to an advisory board.
Yeah.
I've spoken with supervisors who I've worked with time and again. Fact of the matter is, whether you have a commission or advisory board, the buck stops with the supervisor. The fact that my opponent, who unfortunately isn't here, won't even take any responsibility for the Parks Department is a major malfunction of town government. So I will be very much involved with the Parks Department. Listen, again, we have phenomenal parks staff. But we also lost our superintendent and our assistant superintendent. In fact, we've lost quite a number of superintendents in a short amount of time. I think that Yorktown should be very excited with our current superintendent. I think he's a great asset for us. I've done a lot of work with him while he was in Mount Pleasant, because I was, of course, part of our territory when I was working with State Senator Terrence Murphy. But the commission can't be an obstacle. It just can't be. You have unelected bureaucrats who are making very serious decisions that impact this town. And that's a problem. And to what was said earlier, you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't tell me you're non-political, but the chair of your commission is the town clerk. That doesn't work. It's one or the other. Either it's a non-political board or it's a political board. And right now, it is very much a political board.